Good day. Our next topic will be on corals, part 2. The topics will be on taxonomy, coral restoration, and assessment. So for corals, there are various growth forms, or referred to as colony shapes. You can have branching, which are the most common corals that we know. We have massive, laminar, or table-like corals, encrusting types, columnar with no upright with no branching, and foliaceous or leaf-like. And we can also have free-living, which are usually solitary corals. In the last topic, we discussed about the general structure of a coral animal, and now we focus on taxonomy. So they have various growth forms or colony forms. So a branching coral, they are forming finger-like growths or branches like trees, like for instance for Acropora, Seriatopora, Poecilopora species. Generally, the term branching describes colonies that have secondary branches. And that is branches coming off the first branch. So these are some examples for Acropora, species of Acropora, Seriatopora, and Stylophora. Another is columnar, which forms prominent upright columns. For instance, some Poraites species. There are those that are encrusting, that have sheet-like growth forms, tightly adhering to the substrate or the rock and conforming to its shape. For instance, in some Poraites species. There are those that are foliaceous or leaf-like, forming thin, expanded sheets and whorls like in Turbinaria mesenterina. Okay? There are those also that are free-living. Usually, they can be colonies or single polyps, typically unattached on sand, mud, or hard bottom, like the Fungia and Trachyphylla species. Also, the Fungia is more commonly called the mushroom corals. These are solitary corals. There are those that are laminar, or the growth forms like flat tears. For instance, Pachyceres speciosa. And there are those that are massive, which are colonies that are thick and similar in all directions, like for the brain corals, for instance, Favia and Favites species. Okay. There are also those that are turbinate, forming an inverted cone for Turbinaria species. For the vase coral, Turbinaria mesenterina. They're also classified according to colony and polyp formation, either serioid, dendrioid, flagellomeandroid, meandroid, plocoid, and fasciloid. So for serioid, coralites, the arrangement of the coralites, they share a common wall. So here, they share a common wall, but do not form valleys and are pressed so close together that the calyces often take on a polygonal shape, as exemplified by Goniastria species. So here are the common walls, no? shown in the figure for the cereoid type. A dendroid is exemplified by corallites that are tubular and colonies formed of branches with zigzag alternation of corallites. Ito, no? These are dendroid arrangement of the corallites. And there are those that are flagellomeandroid, forming valleys which do not share common walls. Such as Sinuophilia ancora. And there's those that are hydnophorid, formation in which the corallites are grouped around conical hillocks. Example, Hydnophora species. So this is a close-up of Hydnophora excessa in the aquarium showing the hydnophores. And with tentacles extended as viewed from the right figure. Meandroid formation in which group or series of corallites in valley shore share common walls for Leptoria. Here, no? For instance, the closed brain coral form large mounds, cones, mesocysts, sinuous bridges, and valleys. For plocoid, the polyps are separate, distinctly separated polyps, not united by their walls, but connected only by the ephitheca for Barbatoia species. So the polyps do not share common walls, unlike in the cereoid. So they have separate walls for the plocoid. Like the honeycomb coral, Favia species. There's what we call fasciloid, having tubular walls. They are more dramatically separated polyps than plocoid. Polyps become plocoid polyps may become fasciloid as they grow up. So if you dissect it, or in the cross section, you will see that the corallites are tubular, extending from a common base. And you can see here a meandroid versus a fasciloid type. So actually, if you look at outside, externally, they look the same. But at the left, it is Symphilia species, which is meandroid, whereas Lobophilia at the right is fasciloid. So it is really very difficult to a coral based on external appearance. So there are many factors to consider. And also the type of reproduction is also considered in taxonomy, such as intratentacular budding, which is a form of asexual reproduction. So new polyps bud from the oral disc within the ring of tentacles, such as in Goniastria. Okay, this is intratentacular budding. There is what we also call extratentacular budding, in which new polyps bud between polyps from the sinus-arc outside of the ring of tentacles, such as in Montastria. See, this formed outside a polyp. So that's what you call extratentacular budding. Now let's go to coral restoration. In the 1970s, and continued to decline as a result of increasing demands placed by humans and its misuse. Only about 5% of the Philippine reefs have excellent cover, according to the survey of Gomez et al. In 1994. So the alarming degradation of coral reefs resulted in the growing attention to coral reef restoration, as well as rehabilitation using transplanted corals and other invertebrates. So only 5% remain in excellent cover, and that would be those areas like Palawan, no, away from populated areas. So technically, when you speak of restoration, that is to bring back to its original condition. So restoration is to bring back the original condition. The process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. And assistance to natural recovery may either be passive or indirect, or active with direct interventions. So passive would involve improving the management of anthropogenic activities that are impeding the natural recovery. On the other hand, you have active physical restoration and biological restoration initiatives. For example, the actual transplantation of corals in a rich area to degraded sites. The idea of planting corals and restoration goes back at least 30 years ago. Pioneered here in the Philippines, initial activities in Philippines were accomplished through collaborative efforts between UP and the Silliman University. So you can see that Philippines among the countries that pioneered in reef rehabilitation work, together with Hawaii and Australia in the Great Barrier Reef. So let's define a few terms here. Restoration is to bring back a degraded ecosystem back into its original condition. So when you say restoration, that same species, no? At saka yung same number of species and everything, no, that is found in the original condition. On the other hand, you have rehabilitation, no? So these are two different things. So for corals, mas appropriate yung term na restoration. Pero sa mangroves, mas appropriate yung term na rehabilitation. So what is rehabilitation? It's the act of partially or more, rarely fully replacing structural or functional characteristics of an ecosystem. For instance, a mangrove has been degraded, and now you planted only one species. Usually it is Rhizophora species, no? Kasi i-propagate sa mangrove nursery. So yun lang ang nabibili ng mga available sa mga nagma-mangrove rehabilitation. So nakalbo yung mangrove and then you planted one species. So that is still not the original condition, because technically Ang mangrove area, maraming klaseng species. Meron din silang zonation, ano? Meron yung mga mangroves na mas malapit sa coast, and then palayo, pa inland, towards the rivers, no? May mga iba-ibang species yan. So, planting only one species is more of rehabilitation. So, mas okay pa rin yon than nothing at all. Di ba? And then here, another term is remediation, the act or process of remedying or repairing damage on ecosystem. Parang first aid lang yan. Halimbawa, during a storm, yung mga coral, nag-stumble, no? Nag-ikot sila, touch, you just bring it back. You write it up and then maybe attach it. So that's remediation, no? So now let's go to physical versus biological restoration. So physical restoration focuses on repairing the reef environment with an engineering focus. The other hand, biological restoration focuses on restoring the biota and ecological processes. Okay, so physical, certain impacts such as ship groundings, coral mining, and blast fishing can cause major damage to the reefs, creating unstable coral rubble. No? So, ang coral reef, kapag na dynamite fishing na siya, or blast fishing, nadudurog yan. So, yung na coral, that's what you call rubble. In sand, no? And also together with the sand, that are unlikely to recover even over many decades unless restoration is carried out, physical, no? Kasi ang mga corals may requirements sila aside from the temperature, light, depth, etc. Kailangan din niya ng stable substrate na pagkakapitan at saka doon siya mag-grow. Kung wala noon, maaaring mag-grow siya sa mga rubble, but in the end, pag dumating na yung bagyo, magtatumbling na siya doon, na susmotor siya, na dadaganan ng sand, no? So, hindi rin lalaki yung coral larvae doon. Kailangan niya talaga is a stable substrate in which to grow. And usually, those are the corals themselves, no? So, kailangan ng physical restoration kasi matagal yun, matatagalan talaga. And so they do triage or repair of the damaged reef by involving cementing or epoxying large cracks in the reef. Writing, no, yung itinatayo yung mga natumbang corals o nagtumbling na corals and reattaching corals, sponges, and other reef organisms. Or covering loose rubble with patches of boulders, ng mga limestone boulders, malalaking bato, para doon kakapit yung mga new recruits, coral recruits, no? And also there's still that mga artificial reef creation like the reef balls, eco reef, and bio rock. So these have trademarks, no? Dati nung araw, they use old cars, no, or yung mga tires, no, in bamboo na ginagawang artificial reef, pero ngayon hindi na siya dahil hindi siya tatagal at saka maaring may mga toxic substances doon, no. Okay, this is the reef ball, no, having a trademark, the world's leading designed artificial reef modules. They are simply the safe and most effective way to create sustainable reef habitat. Sabi ng manufacturer, no? And then these are reef balls na ginaya na ibang shape, made of concrete or clay. So in other words, these reef modules provide habitat for fish and settlement for corals. So they are made from concrete and can last for over 500 years. Sabi nila, they are inexpensive to deploy and stable during storms and hurricanes. Meron tayong reef balls na na-install sa Bulinaw. No? UPMSI has done this, no? Has tried this. Meron silang mold. So, cement lang ang gagamitin to create. So again, these are reef modules. And then ginaya yan sa Boracay. So they call it reef buds. Medyo mas mababa lang siya. So the reef balls, you can allow natural recruits or you can even plant the corals para mas mabilis. No? So dinidikit yung corals doon sa reef balls using epoxy, marine epoxy. No? So these are reef ball with natural settlement. Medyo mas matagal nga lang. But you can also plant corals para mas maganda. Tsaka magiging tourist destination din, no? Okay, you have from unglazed food grade ceramic, identical to that used in the cups, dinnerware, no? Coral transplant can be attached directly to the ceramic branches using cable ties, epoxy. So nabibili siya, mo yan. Decorate modules are deployed in low to moderate wave energy depths between 10 to 60 feet. No? And this is one module. No? And this is a complete array. For example, in Indonesia. So, eventually, kakapitan niya ng corals and then mag-fuse na yan, mag-fuse na siya to become the reef. Another is the BioRock technology, the process of electrodeposition of minerals in water known as mineral accretion technology. Ito, it uses safe, low voltage electrical currents through seawater causing precipitation of dissolved minerals to crystallize into a white limestone similar to natural coral reefs, no? So, first you need the framework kung saan doon mag-precipitate yung mga calcium carbonate. So, at kailangan siya ng electrical source. Can be powered by a wide range of electrical sources such as renewable energy, windmills, solar panels, and tidal current generators. So, ina-attach din yung mga corals doon sa structure para mas mabilis, no? So they have termed it coral arcs. I think this was replicated in Batangas. No? They plant corals and eventually fuse yan. So siya yung magiging reef. Kasi kung hindi mo gagawin, mas matatagalan lalo na kung coral rubble na. Ang tagal mag-recover yon. Okay? Now let me discuss about the activities of the University of San Carlos in Cebu, one of the pioneers also in coral transplantation. So they have this coral farm project. And the objective was to serve as a nursery for coral fragments, to maintain biodiversity and generate income for fishers by marketing farm-grown coral fragments for rehabilitation and ecotourism. So sabi nila, and also UPM Isaya as a project, a few project between 2001 to 2005. This has been renewed, no? And then they have coral transplantation and giant clam stocking. So yung sa University of San Carlos, na roll out nila sa mga state universities, no, yung technology. So the plan here was to collect yung mga naturally broken fragments, yung mga natural na naputol na mga branches. Kasi buhay pa naman yon, no, unless buried na sila in sand. So pupulutin siya, yun ang gagamitin for transplantation rather than cutting off healthy branches, no? So you call these corals of opportunities or COs, mga broken fragments. Then they are tied on coral nursery units para makarecover sila, no? So the nursery units dapat stable at saka above the platform siya, no? So it is tied using cable ties, no? Or GI wires. So actually, Pangasinan State University, where I belong, has been a partner in this national activity by BFAR and CHED. Okay, so ito, picking up natural broken fragments and tying it up in coral nubbins. So they call it coral nubbins or COPs until they are ready for transplantation. So you have to do this underwater, no? I have seen some pictures na they do it mabagal sila mag-work, so they do it out of water or sa bangka. Actually, it's very dangerous for the corals. They are prone to sensitive to desiccation. So yeah, as much as possible, you do all these activities underwater. Kaya lang, kailangan experienced diver din para there's more time in doing transplantation work rather than spending time on adjusting your buoyancy in the water, no? Kasi minsan pag hindi sanay, bago makatrabaho ang daming mga inuuna. Kailangan yung syempre yung yung buoyancy mo sa tubig. And remember, ang diver can stay only up to 1 hour underwater. Kasi maubos na yung air sa scuba tank. Kasi kailangan mabilis na. And then, when it's time to transplant them, you attach them using marine epoxy. So a patty is formed and then it will harden underwater. And also, attaching the coral fragments. Under the project, dapat may concrete nail and also epoxy, then a cable tie. Mga na-attach na yan, no? These reef buds have been replicated in Boracay and other areas, I believe. So they instantly serve as habitat for fish and attachment surfaces for young coral. Yeah, I believe these are fish larvae, no? Finding refuge in this artificial reef. No? Okay. Kasi look at the sand, no? Yung corals, maring mag-attach dyan, pero after some time, it don't survive. Kapag na smother siya dyan, no? So you need to prepare the bottom for using artificial reef for coral reef for coral attachment. So we talked about this crown of thorns starfish, the Acanthaster plancai, no? That has to be removed periodically. They are part of the reef, pero pag masyado siyang marami, they destroy corals, live corals. That's how you collect them using a tong. Kasi may venom din sila. Pag natusok ka, masakit, no? So you have to put them in a basket or crate and then dry it in the shore. So there are predators of corals like the nudibranch, Festila, and then there are also corallivorous snails eating coral animals, and then predation by Drupella snails. Okay, these are other coral nursery units. So, iba-ibang mga designs. And then some earlier used this where they attach the corals. Pag lumaki na yan, they place it in the reef. So corals, there are two methods of reproduction. They have asexual and sexual reproduction. So if intact donor colonies are used as source of fragments for transplantation, limited research suggests that only a small part of the colony, less than 10%, should be cut to minimize stress to the donor colony. So yung mga unang transplantation work ganito. So there's a healthy colony, puputol ng mga branches. So kailangan less than 10% lang. Kasi baka naman pinagputol-putol mo yung buong colony, kawawa naman yung yung pinaka-donor niya. So, paano kung massive corals, yung mga brain corals, how would you cut it, no? Para siyang parang ginagawang pizza pie ang pag-cut, no? So again, this is the marine epoxy, no? Para mag-fit siya doon sa buta, sa reef, and then there's a concrete nail, and then a cable tie. That's how they attach doon sa DOST's Philippinovation Coral Project. Ito yung sa mga massive colonies, chip off yung fragments ng coral. So they can grow back, no? Hindi, ngayon, ang pinakauso ngayon is the sexual propagation of corals for seeding reefs. Kasi they utilize the ability of corals to reproduce sexually. So corals reproduce sexually either by broadcast spawning. Kasi may mga nights, no, kung saan nag-spawn lahat ng corals, sabay-sabay sila. Or by internal brooding. Meron din sila noon, no? Nanganganak na parang ng planula larvae. Followed by planulation or release of the planula larvae into the water. So during sexual reproduction or sa mga broadcast spawning, they produce very large numbers of eggs and eventually the larvae. So this is a coral colony releasing male gametes, no? And then here releasing large numbers of eggs. Eventually the eggs will be fertilized in the water and then develop into a planula larva. After some time, the larva becomes competent to settle, no, in the reef and then grow. This is, sa right naman, is the parang internal brooding. Rini-release niya. Yung eggs develop inside the female, the colony, and then release nila, planula larva na. So these are sexual reproduction in corals. May mga advantages yan. May mga advantages kasi ang sexual reproduction. Bukod sa napakarami, hindi mo na kailangan magputol o kumuha ng colony sa dagat. Okay, so in broadcast spawning, coral release large numbers of male and female gametes, eggs and sperm into the water where fertilization takes place. no? And then it will eventually be fertilized. And then the fertilized egg will develop into a planula larva. And eventually, it will settle on a hard surface and become a new coral colony. Yung coral can also reproduce asexually by budding, no? May bagong coralite na nagbud within the colony or pwedeng nabali siya through fragmentation. It can grow back, no? As long as maka-attach siya, no? Advantages of sexual reproduction kasi over asexual techniques, no? There is less need to fragment donor colonies, reducing damage to the source reef. Hindi mo kailangan magputol. And of course, as we all know in biology, sexually produced coral colonies are not clonal. Ibig sabihin, they have greater genetic diversity. So even though they belong to one species, they still have intraspecific genetic diversity or differentiation, no? So kahit pareho sila ng species ng coral, pero merong mga individuals that are naturally stronger than others, no? So they are more adaptable to changes in the environment. Diba? Merong genetic differentiation. So this method may also require few colonies. Pwede rin namang kukuha ka ng isang colony lang, 1, 2, or 3 colonies, and then remove it from the reef, no? Bring it to the hatchery or the laboratory, allow it to spawn, collect the eggs and rear the eggs, and then you have to place back the colony into the reef, no? Natural reef. So the larvae produced by the spawning corals can be collected and reared before either settling them directly into the reef or settling them on substrate in the aquaria. Pwede rin naman kasing yung kasi sobrang dami, millions of eggs nga. Siyempre magiging larvae yon. Pwedeng when it's time to settle, you release it back to the natural reef, no? So, parang marami siya nalagpasan doon kasi hindi siya magiging food for predators. Kasi ready to settle na yon. Or you can rear them in the laboratory or the hatchery, allow them to settle on different substrates. Okay? Kasi sa broadcast spawning, usually synchronized yan. Usually, mga few nights, no, they release gametes. Sa UPMSI, sa Bolinao, na-figure out na nila kung anong months yon. Alam na nilang kung anong months buntis yung coral. So, binabantayan nila yon, no? And then, hinihintay nila mag-spawn. So, ganito, no? So, sa ibang, pwedeng, sa UPMSI kasi, nung unang mga work nila, they collected colonies, no? Like this, Acropora tenuis. They brought this colony in the place in a tank in a hatchery, then allowed it to spawn. So dapat alam nila kung buntis yan. Di na dissect, tinitingnan sa microscope, no? And then, hinihintay mag-spawn. And then they place tiles at the bottom for the planula larvae to settle. After some time, so mga several days yan eh. No? Several days. So while staying in the plankton, after some time, they become competent to settle. At least naiwasan na yung mga gauntlet of predators, hindi na sila makakain sa plankton, no? So these are eggs or the larvae, no? They develop already into a larvae, ready to settle. Pwedeng ganito rin yung mga placement ng tiles, no? Para mas maraming tiles na mailagay. And of course, with aeration, para ma-well distributed yung larvae. And then after some time, no, they settle and grow. So pag nag-grow ito, maybe a few months like this. But these are dead corals already. So nahingi ko itong tile na ito to show to my students. No, they can attach it now to the reef. No? This is another species, Poeciliophora. Sa ibang bansa ay pwede rin namang kinokolekta yung mga nag-spawn sa field. Then, ilalagay sa mga hapas. And then, pag mag-ready to settle na ay i-release ulit. Siyempre, hindi lahat mabubuhay yan. Yung iba makakain ng mga fish and other predators, no? Then, meron technique na naman na ginawa ang UPMSI, no? Sa isang research, they attach coral larvae dun sa mga tox, no? Di ba pag sa mga drilling sa mga walls, they place tox, no? So sa dulo ng tox, nag-grow sila ng coral, nag-attach, no? After some time, nag-grow na yung corals and then outplant into the field, no? So dinidrill yung reef, then place some epoxy, then insert the tox. So after 6 months in the hatchery, no, letter A, nag-grow na yung mga colony and then outplanted into a degraded reef area. And then letter C is 6 months after outplantation. Okay? Kasi ang UP, MSI, dahil alam na nila yung time of spawning, no? So, inaabangan na nila yon. May mga months, alam na nila kung kailan magsuspawning ang corals. And then they dive, no? At night time, they bring in plastic bags to collect the spawned eggs. Fertilized eggs, no? And then using plastic bags, and then they rear the eggs, the fertilized eggs in the hatchery. So in other words, hindi mo na kailangan kumuha ng mga colonies sa field. At saka maaaring different species pa yun, mas maganda, no? So they just collect the eggs in the field at night during episodes of coral spawning. So kung minsan, pwedeng masisiro sa mga nights, no? Pero succeeding nights, usually mas stronger na yung chances na makakakollect ng spawned eggs. Okay? So now we go to reef monitoring. Kasi pwede rin naman itong gawing mga thesis ng mga students. No? I just want to show how reefs are monitored. Kasi you're doing transplantation. No? So how are you going to evaluate the program if there is no reef monitoring? So why do you monitor? To see if the management efforts and activities are successful over time. For instance, no, the establishment of marine protected areas. How are you going to sell the idea that marine protected areas are working to the fishers kung hindi mo mapapakita na napakabuti nga yung management option na to. So we need to do reef monitoring. One method is the manta-tow technique. The observation of an underwater area of good visibility by a snorkeler being pulled by a small boat. It is done to get a general idea of the various types and amounts of habitat types and large obvious things in an area. So mabilisan ito. Parang big picture agad ng reef, no? So this is done to, lalo na kung yung scientist bago dun sa reef, titingnan niya kung saan magandang ano. So para general idea muna, no? So ang strengths, large areas can be observed in a short time, pero may limitations, can be done only during area of good visibility and calm conditions. Measurements are only approximate and can be very tiring. So this, actually ang manta-tow maganda rin kasi even mga fishers, mga people organizations can be trained to do this by themselves, no? So this is how a snorkeler is pulled by a boat, no? So meron ding manta board here, tapos may data sheet. Then requirements, a boat, mast, snorkel, manta board, a map of the area, a stopwatch, a rope, and a GPS. So these are an example of a manta-tow data. So this can be done by people's organizations and volunteers, no? Hindi masyadong scientific. Look at the categories: hard coral, soft coral, dead coral, and dead coral with algae / sand. So apat lang ang ano nila. No? So during each topic, so the area viewed is 10 meters wide, no, depending on clarity. And a person, dapat tatlo ang gagawa nito. The boatman, the diver, and merong timer. Dapat body niya yan, no? Meanwhile, a person keeping watch of the time or the timer on the boat looks out for observer safety. Dapat meron din siya. Hindi lang siya nagki-keep ng time, but also look at the safety of the diver and gives directional signals to the boat driver. So actually, nagawa na namin sa Palawan to, no? Very exciting siya. So ang ato is usually 2 minutes. Ang nako-cover niya is around 100 to 150 meters. Okay, yung timer should inform the driver sa start and end. No? Para mag-minor yung driver ng boat, no? Then the observer will stop and then record his observations into the data form. Siyempre, tinitake note yung coordinates before and after. Okay? So, madali lang naman. Look at the categories: hard coral, soft coral, dead coral, and dead coral with algae. So again, this can be done by people organizations, fishers, volunteer students. No, hindi kailangan expert sa topic. Okay? Pero pag medyo mas ano na, kailangan ng konting scientific data, halimbawa sa mga EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment, dapat ano na, mga point intercept method na. So ito is a method used by scuba divers na ito, no? Estimating the relative abundance of living and non-living corals in the reef bottom, observed within a defined area. So the point intercept method to more precisely estimate the abundance of corals, hard corals, soft corals, dead corals, algae, and various reef substrate to reflect the health of the reef. So requirement is a picture book, dapat medyo nagme-memorize siya, no? Yung diver. o yung gagawa ng assessment. Scuba diver, 50-meter transect line, slates, okay? And then lay the transect on a constant depth, maybe 5 meters along the reef. Starting at one end, he swims and identifies the benthic life form directly under each 0.25 meter interval along the transect line. So, medyo mas marami ng categories. We have hard coral, soft coral, turf algae, maliliit na tumutubo sa bato, no? The dead coral, mga rubble, sand, silt, macroalgae, dead coral with algae. Here is coral rubble and coralline algae. These are the common benthic life forms. Then, ito na, no? Yung paglagay, lay down ng transect line, and then observing. Okay, this is an example. For example, ang data mo ganito. So, sa 50 meters, so you had 30, sa 50 meters, ilang 0.25 meters yun, that is 200 observations. Kailangan mabilis, no? Remember, the diver should stay underwater for only 1 hour. Paano mo matatapos yan? Kailangan mabilis. Every 0.25, ano yun? Then move on, 0.5, 0.75, 1 meter, 1.25, 1.5, 175, 2 meters, no? Minsan pare-parehas naman yan, kaya mabilis naman. So, for example, you have, sa observation mo, you have 10 observations of hard coral and then 30 observations of soft coral. So sa soft coral, the data would be 30 over 200 equals 15% soft coral. Okay? This could be a summary form, no? And then also na rin yung fish visual census sa ganitong trabaho. No, you count identify and count the fishes found in the coral reef because it reflects the health also of the coral reef. So fish visual census is the identification and counting of fishes observed within a defined area. Usually, kung ano yung kung saan yung transect line, yun na rin yung doon na rin ginagawa yung fish visual census. Could also be done by one diver or two. Para isang pasada na lang, no? It's done to estimate the variety, the diversity, number, species of common, easily seen coral reef fish in areas of good visibility. Yeah, because it reflects the health of the fish in the surveyed coral reef area. So requirements, mask, snorkel, dapat diver, 50-meter transect line, boat, fish identification guide, dapat medyo nagme-memorize na yan before the activity. Fins, and optional yung life jacket. So ito, no? So after, ang diver kasi, every 5 meters, nagsastop siya. And then count everything that he sees with 5 meters to the right and 5 meters to the left. Identify the species or the fish or the family group of the fish or pwedeng species kung scientist siya, and then count ilan sila and estimate the size, no? Say 3 cm, 4 cm, 5 cm. Of course, you need guides, no? So look at this. These are angel fishes. Daming klaseng species, no? Pero pare-parehas ang shape niya if you look at it carefully. Okay, now, ang mga scientists, they're expected to identify down to the species. Pero kung mga ano lang, pwedeng family na lang. Look at the ano, these are common reef families. For instance, lapu-lapu, Pinepilidae, no? Pareho ang general shape niya ng mga lapu-lapu, ganitong itsura niya. Iba-iba lang ng mga spots, patterns, and colors. Pero yung general shape niya, ganyan. So, Epinephrilidae, no? Sa snapper, ganito ang general shape niya. Nag-iiba lang sila sa kulay o maybe sa spot. Oh, butterfly fish, there are so many species pero they have the same shape. So Chaetodontidae for the butterfly fishes, angel fishes, wrasses, no? So by family level na lang, no? For instance, surgeon fishes, ganitong itsura nila, at saka meron silang scalpel dito. That's why they call surgeon fishes. These are damsel fishes, wrasses, butterfly, groupers or lapu-lapu, parrotfish. Lahat naman sila merong beak na parang parrot. Family Scaridae, no? So, ayan. Lay down the transect, record the depth, wait for 10-15 minutes for the fishes to return. Kasi they are very loyal naman to the reef. Yung mga reef fishes, babalik yan. No? So, at one end, the observer swims, and then after 5 meters, looks at 5 meter to the right and 5 meter to the left. Then write observations and swim again from 5 meter to 10 meters along the transect line. So, pag natapos yung line, naka-observe siya ng 500 square meters. No? Okay, generally, the faster moving fish are counted before. This is a data form, no? Fish abundance data form. So, families lang nakalagay dito. And then, nandito na yung mga sizes. So, fill up mo na lang yan. Of data found outside the marine protected area, found inside the marine protected area. Dapat mapakita mo rito na mas maraming isda doon sa loob ng marine protected area. Otherwise, hindi na maniniwala yung mga fishers that marine protected areas are working, no? Okay.